This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. After experiencing trauma, I went to therapy, and my therapist guided me through a difficult time in my life. They helped me understand what was happening and provided me with tools to cope and find my own strength and resilience. Their experience and compassion were invaluable and enabled me to rebuild my life and move forward. I strongly believe in the power of therapy to help people through difficult times. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/resilience. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who has years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you, all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/resilience or choose podcast, then notes on resilience during sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month.
So inclusivity is the secret sauce that makes everything come together. Like, this is the juiciness. This is the luxury that we get to experience of so many types of humans in the world, and come from a place of curiosity versus judgment around, oh, well, why did you do that? Or why are you like that? It's like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why. Like, get more curious, and it's the energy behind it. And so I feel like organizations can ensure inclusivity by seeking input from their employees of diverse backgrounds. Ask questions, get curious.
Hello, and welcome to Notes on Resilience. Today we have an episode in our new series, Wellness at Work, Nurturing Resilience. And I had a chance to speak with Amie Barsky. She is a trauma-informed nervous system coach and a breathwork facilitator. And we had a fabulous conversation about the foundations of mental wellness in the workplace, why paying attention to mental wellness in the workplace actually matters. And we talked about trauma and how that shows up in our lives and in our workplaces. Thank you so much for listening. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. Amie, I'm so excited to get to talk to you today. Thank you for being here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, before we get into the topic of wellness at work and nurturing resilience, I ask all my guests this year, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
This is a really good question. And I would say Martin Luther King.
Ooh.
Yes. Leader, advocate, incredible human being, big heart, working through societal differences, beliefs, and change the world. Like, really a world changer, like, seriously. And if I could meet him and sit and share and exchange a meal and conversation and heart space, sign me up.
Absolutely. If you figure out how to work that out, sign me up too. I think that would be amazing. And now you and I are going to be talking about wellness at work and how to nurture resilience. And I guess I want to start with a general question. I guess, why do we even care about mental wellness in the workplace?
I think the biggest reason why we care is because we spend so much time in our lives in work. Like, we spend how many hours a day? Some people more than 8, more than 10. And so if you're spending a majority of your time in your workspace, your mental health and emotional well-being gets to be a top priority.
Okay. So what does it look like for someone to have mental wellness when they're in the workplace? And why is that important, not only for the individual, but for the organization itself?
I love this question because I like to use analogies, just so you know, put it out there now. So imagine a symphony, right? And so mental health and wellness in a workspace is like a symphony. It's like an orchestra. You've got all these instruments and you want them to be in tune, right? Because each instrument has something different to contribute in their unique melody, if you will, and their unique gifts and talents. And in that creates the harmony of the entire workspace, right? So it creates a beautiful song that you actually want to listen to, not something that you're like, oh my gosh, it's so out of tune, right? And so individuals, it's important for individuals because they feel centered, they feel confident, they feel fulfilled in their roles that they're playing in the workspace. And while that's for them as an individual, is the organization, well, they have a well-oiled machine, right? They have their employees thriving, they have them innovated, they have them collaborating in a more, I would say, seamless way, personally.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I like the symphony analogy. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So, does organizational culture have a role in promoting mental wellness?
I believe so. And if you think about it, the culture is I would say, the heart and soul of a workplace, right? It's the energy. It's, do you want to walk into the doors of your workspace, whether it's in person or online, and feel good, feel welcomed, feel understood, feel supported. And so that's how we set the vibe, is in the culture. And leaders create the culture, if you think about it, because if they prioritize mental health and well-being, and they prioritize that their employees are taken care of, and they lead with empathy, and they're promoting a harmonious workspace as well, offering resources or mental health support outside the system, or they're really like championing for the dialogue of, you know what, we can talk about mental health here, and it's all about nurturing the environment so that the employees feel valued and understood and fully supported.
I think that's so important. Recently, there was a study, and there's been articles about that specific programs like offering employee resource groups or, a mental health service hasn't actually been shown to change people's mental health within the workplace. And my thinking is that's if you just have those tools, but you haven't changed the culture, then I think that's where the disconnect is. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that 1,000%. Because if you think about it, if you practice something on your own, or maybe you read the books, or you listen to the podcast, or you go to the seminars, but you're not actually embodied in it, you're not actually practicing it, walking the walk, you're just kind of talking the talk and kind of going through it, then there's definitely going to be a disconnect.
Yeah. What can we... Just thinking about leaders here who have a lot on their plates and may want to be dealing with culture and may want to be thinking about mental wellness for whatever reasons, but they have so many things on their plate. What can they be doing, or what can employees be looking for that show it's an organization that really does support mental health and mental wellness?
Well, you're absolutely right. Leaders do have a lot on their plates, right? They are keeping all the balls in the air, if you will, right? And I think most importantly, some of those balls are, we'll say, rubber balls, and some of them are glass balls. So you don't want to drop the glass balls.
Yes.
And so you get to decide as a leader, like, that's part of your job. That's part of your responsibility, is to make sure that you are advocating for yourself in your own mental health and wellness and taking care of yourself, because it has to ripple out. It's the law of reciprocity. If I am being a certain way and I'm taking care of myself, and my employees and my coworkers, they're watching, they're witnessing, they're seeing how I show up in the world, that has to ripple out. And so just by way of being, the employees will get that essence, that feeling, because we're energetic beings. We feel each other out, right? We're primal, we're animals. We don't actually have to use words and language. We can just feel into it and get it. So I think that's important, that the leader takes care of themselves, that they make sure that glass ball, it doesn't get dropped, because there's too much at risk if it does. And I know that we live in a culture where go, do, more. And the reality is it's burning out the nervous system. And so how can I think the leaders get to say, I come first. And I know that can sound selfish. However, it is essential. It's not selfish. Because if I'm taking care of me, then I'm making sure that my cup is full, and I'm giving from overflow. I'm not giving from resentment or regret or frustration, or I'm giving from, yes, abundance here.
Yeah. I like that you talked about having leaders embody the idea and taking care of themselves first, but the embodying it and showing it in their actions. I was just talking with somebody, and we were talking about what a small percentage of communication is actually the words that come out of your mouth. That so much of it is tone of voice and body language and behavior. I know it can be easy for me to forget that piece of it.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. If you say you're in, I don't know, the social area of the workspace, maybe it's the kitchen where everyone gets their coffee and has lunch or what have you, and somebody that's in leadership role is standing there kind of collapsed in their body, head down, they won't feel very approachable. They wouldn't feel very open to if there was a question or something, someone needed support, right? That body language is showing they're not available right now. So it's not to say put on a fake smile and be 24/7, 365, happy, because that's false positivity.
Right.
It's cleaning up your side of the street. And it's a practice.
Yes.
It's a practice. Like, it's not to say I do this one workshop, I do this one thing and and then that's it. It's a practice. We are always evolving. I am not the same person I was yesterday. You're not the same person you were yesterday. We're a different human being today. And every single day we get to choose, how do I show up for myself? How do I show up for my family? How do I show up for my coworkers? And it ripples out into the world. And so that's the game we get to play, is it gets to be an inside out job.
Yes. I like thinking of it that way.
Yeah.
Now, we've been talking generally about mental wellness, and that encompasses our humanness, whatever might be happening to me at work, outside of work. But something you and I both think about is the concept of trauma. So what is trauma, and how might that show up an employee in a workplace?
Such a good question. So trauma in a nutshell is when an experience happens and your nervous system reacts to the experience, meaning it goes into too much, too fast, too soon, shut down. And there's 4 coping mechanisms: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. They're strategies that we use to keep ourselves safe. And so when our body experiences something, it experiences it, it reacts to it, and then it almost always, it creates this armor. And on our side, my side of the armor, there is limiting beliefs that get plugged into the nervous system and the mind, right? The mind makes a choice. What happened? Oh, well, that was my fault. Oh my gosh, I feel so guilty. I feel ashamed. I feel broken. I feel unworthy. I feel unlovable. Whatever the thing is, that thought becomes a belief because it gets planted. And then it takes bloom, it takes root, right? And then it grows. And then we are animals, and animals do what? They scan. They scan for safety all the time. And so we're actually doing that unconsciously all the time, whether we know it or not. And so when we talk about trauma, they've made these labels, big T, little t, and they've made categories of trauma just so we can understand it a little bit better in our mind, because that's how our brain functions. We want to logically make sense of things, which is great. However, the body doesn't give a shit. The body just has the experience and then it's stored, right? Your body is a living library of every experience you've ever had. It's everything is living there. Our brain can delete, distort, rearrange thoughts to keep us safe. Our body is holding all of it. So maybe you're a person who's like, well, I don't really remember my childhood. I don't remember a lot, X, Y, Z, whatever. And that's okay. Your body has the living library of all of it. We don't need to remember. We get to go, wow, okay, great. I don't remember that. And let me look at my life right now. What do I feel in my life right now? Do I feel overwhelmed? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel angry? Do I feel resentment? Do I feel regret? Do I find myself procrastinating? Do I find myself being a perfectionist, or my inner critic running the show, right? These signs, these daily overachieving, overthinking, overanalyzing, those are all signs that there's some type of trauma hanging out, taking up real estate in the body, and it's playing out in our present life, even though it's from the past.
Playing out in our present life, then that means it's playing out in all aspects of our present life, including,
of course, because everything touches everything. Mm-hmm.
How we show up in the workplace. So my experience was bombing. One moment in time, I can say to people, this is my experience. Other people have been car accident and a natural disaster, and you can say, this moment in time, this is the thing that happened to me, and this is why I'm feeling that way. But if you've got a different kind of trauma, if it's been ongoing or if it was a long time ago, you might not even know that that's why you're showing up the way you're showing up, which I'm sure we could spend many hours talking about how to kind of dig that out. So if that's happening to me and I don't know that's happening to me, how am I showing up in the workplace? And is it possible that the way the workplace is structured could help or hinder me?
Absolutely. Well, you get to create self-awareness. That's step one. When I'm aware of something, then I can make new choices. If I'm not aware of something and it's all unconscious, then I don't know, right? I don't know I only know what I know until I know something else. And once I know this other thing about myself, then I can go, oh, okay, well, I'm choosing something else because I know that thing that I'm doing, and I'll use an example, emotional eating, that was a thing for me. And I didn't even know it until I understood I was on my healing journey and understanding what I was avoiding by eating. And I was like, holy shit, that makes so much sense. And so now that I knew, I choose something else instead. I choose to go, okay, I want to grab that snack, that, I don't know, ice cream or whatever it is. And I ask myself, do I actually desire to have ice cream right now? Or am I avoiding something? Am I eating to avoid something?
Mm-hmm.
Emotions, am I procrastinating?
Yeah.
What else is there that I'm not wanting to do or look at? And I'm filling the void with ice cream. So there's that. So awareness comes first. And so, yes, the workplace does affect it, because if the workplace is attuned to supporting people, because we're all human and we're all experiencing different levels, anxiety or overwhelm or stress. Like there's good stress, honestly. Like I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but there is good stress, right? And so there's that. It's like, okay, how can I support everybody as a community, as a collective, so that they feel safe to share? Hey, you know what? Something's coming up for me right now. Do you have a second? We can have a conversation. You ask permission always, because you don't want just to project and dump on somebody.
Yes.
And then you go from there. And so that creating that safe place is the first step.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. And what about stigma? I have read statistics that say, as many as 70% of employees have said they felt stigma in talking about mental health issues in the workplace. So I think that's a very real challenge for people who are dealing with trauma or other mental health issues. So is that the case in your experience? And how can we, I was going to say fight, I'm not sure that's the right word, but fight against that?
Well, okay. So it does happen. And I feel that it's happening less and less because things are changing in the world. We have recognized right now that the suicide rate of men is so high because they are holding so much stress and so much pressure, and so much is expected of them. And so it is coming to be more common, more available, and more like just a casual conversation of how are you doing? And on the other side of how are you doing is not the word I'm fine. It's, wow, you know what? Thank you for asking. And some stuff's actually been coming up for me. And then hopefully there's an open space to have that conversation, because we get to I feel like the walls are dismantling. They are crumbling when it comes to, I remember the word therapy was like kept a secret. Like, oh my God, I'm going to therapy. You know what I mean? It was like, you didn't talk about it, right? But now everyone's like, I have a therapist. I have a coach. I'm doing this life coaching program. And that's exciting because that's what's needed. It just gets to become a bridge between the understanding of the human experience and the acceptance, instead of fighting and denying it and suppressing it. Because if it's not accepted in the workspace, that means that person is at some degree suppressing.
Right.
And that's not good. So organizations can address the stigma by fostering open dialogue, by providing education and training, and really honestly, just creating a channel of support, just in a confidential place too, of course. And it's kind of like shining a light in the darkness. And once again, we're back to creating the safe space. If I can create a safe place for my employees who can feel open to say what it is without judgment or discrimination, then they're most likely to do that. They will share. There's any hesitancy of, oh, they're going to judge me, or I'm going to be shamed, or I might not get that raise or that promotion or whatever it is, then they're not going to feel safe and they're going to suppress.
Yes. I'm a very hard on my sleeve kind of person. And I certainly can, in certain instances, not share what I'm feeling. I am able to do that. But I remember one time in a job long, long ago where I was crying, and it was in a meeting with like the division director. And I was just instantly feeling I was crying about something that didn't have anything to do with what was happening in the room. And I was horrified when the division director saw me and commented on it. And then everyone in the room who didn't already know I was crying now turned to look at me to see that I was crying. And I just remember thinking, all right, need to have better control of my emotions. And this is not a safe space because I felt shamed for having this emotion. Now, again, it didn't have anything to do with what was actually happening. So I just share that because I just thought of that as we were talking, that it didn't feel like a safe space. Well, it wasn't. It didn't feel like it because it wasn't.
Correct. And I'm so sorry you had to experience that. That's not okay because we're human.
Yeah, it was many, many, many years ago. So I hope that that particular leader and that particular workplace have changed a little bit. But, you were talking about people saying, oh, I have a therapist. And I feel like it's no longer kind of a bad thing to say, I'm taking a mental health day. I mean, I don't even think you need to say that, but people do at least.
It's becoming more accepted. Yeah.
Feel like that's legitimate. I'm taking a day because.
Well, I think we're realizing now how important mental health is. Like, I don't think it was so far on the back burner because, like you said, there wasn't a safe place to do it. And it comes from our families too. It comes from our childhood. If you were ever dismissed as a child, when you had emotions or big emotions and they're like, stop being so dramatic, or you're too much, you're too sensitive, things like that. That's where we learn to start to shut down and suppress. And so of course it ended up in the workplace because everything touches everything.
Yes.
And now it's starting to shift. If you notice how parents are now parenting, there's so many shifts happening that they are allowing their children to really vocalize in a safe place what's coming up for them because they're understanding more and more how crucial emotional health and well-being is.
Yes, absolutely. So how can an organization be thinking about mental wellness and resiliency in a way that is inclusive of all the different types of people that they have, whether it's trauma, whether it's stress in the workplace, burnout? How can they kind of make sure that they're addressing the diverse needs of the workforce without having to bring in a whole bunch of new programs?
This is such a great question. And I feel that if you think about it like a recipe, like diversity is the spice of life, right? If we were all the same and cookie cutter, like, don't you get bored when you drive through a neighborhood that's the same house? Maybe it's a different color, but I don't know, the builders, like that's what they chose or whatever, for whatever reason, like it's boring, right? So yes. Inclusivity is the secret sauce that makes everything come together. Like this is the juiciness. This is the luxury that we get to experience of so many types of humans in the world and come from a place of curiosity versus judgment around, oh, well, why did you do that? Or why are you like that? It's like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why. Like get more curious, and it's the energy behind it. And so I feel like organizations can ensure inclusivity by seeking input from their employees of diverse backgrounds. Ask questions, get curious, and see, and go in with that open mind and offer a range of resources that have different support options for different people. And honestly, it doesn't even matter, what color my skin is or what culture I come from. We all have a heartbeat, right? We all bleed red. Like we're all still humans. We still experience emotions. So having that diversity come together and go, wow, you're still a human being. We're just like each other. We're just wrapped in a different color wrapping paper. That's all. And creating an environment where everyone feels valued and respected. And I think that's the big thing, is the respect piece.
Yeah.
You get to feel respected. And so
yeah,
coming back to like bringing it in, it's like having potluck. Everyone brings a different dish. So can we get curious about these different dishes? And as all these dishes land on the table called the workspace, we're creating this feast. And there's so much variety that it satisfies every palate. That's the fun part, because there's so many ways to support mental health and wellness. And it's not a one size fits all. Like, some people might love breath work. Some people might love silent meditation. Some people might love walking in nature. Like, it's just not a one size fits all.
Yeah. And I know that in businesses,
Sure.
You want to find the program, the one thing that you can kind of add in because it's measurable and it's SMART goals and it is I like the analogy of the feast, and there's a little bit there. Everybody can have something. They're not all going to have the same things.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting close to the end of our time, and I definitely could be on the call with you for many, many more hours talking about this topic because it's so close to my heart. But is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to make sure to our listeners know?
I feel that healing and experiencing this human life that we have gets to be more fun. There gets to be more play. There gets to be more pleasure and bliss, because I feel once we start adulting, right, we get into that adult, life of like do, responsibility, go, we lose that fire of playfulness and fun and silliness and joy. And so if we could spark that back in, I think that's a big, big piece of the puzzle. Because sometimes we put in it can feel intense. It can feel heavy. So how do we infuse a little more fun, a little more joy, a little more play, a little more bliss to our daily lives, even if it's a task that you absolutely can't stand? And I'll take it to the household for a second. I don't know about you, but doing dishes is not my most favorite thing to do in the world. Mm-hmm. How can I bring joy to doing the dishes? Sometimes I'll play a little music. I have a window right by my sink. I'll just look outside and watch the birds while I'm doing the dishes. Like I infuse joy in the small tasks of life, because that's already starting to plant seeds in how I can show up in other areas of my life with more joy.
Right. Oh, I love that. All right. So there's a pile of dishes in the kitchen right now. So now I know how to approach that. Amie, thank you so much. Before we go, tell our listeners a little bit about what you do and how they can reach you.
Absolutely. Well, as if you didn't get it from this conversation, I am a trauma and nervous system master coach, and I absolutely love serving individuals who are feeling stuck in life, feeling that sense of overthinking, overanalyzing, or procrastinating, and overwhelmed because they've been on the track of do, go, people please, push and prove themselves. And they're noticing, I'm exhausted, right? And that's how I help people get back in touch with their nervous systems, with their bodies. And now we get to really go, wow, what does my body need? How can I work in a place that's more harmonious between my masculine and my feminine, because we all have it. So how do I dance between these two places, being efficient and the epic leader that I am of my life, and having that intuitive flow, that play, like that creative side as well. So that's one thing I absolutely love to serve my clients with. And you can find me on Instagram or my website, amiebarsky.com.
Excellent. Well, Amie, I'm going to put links in the show notes in case any of our listeners need your services. I think it sounds wonderful what you're doing. It's such an important, as a trauma survivor, I know how important it is to help people with this particular aspect of their life. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And anyone's listening and they desire to try or experience breath work, I would love to offer you a complimentary pass into my monthly breath work. Come on in and play and breathe and release. As my gift from my heart to yours. I want to support every human being the best I can. So that's something I would love to gift.
Oh, thank you so much. That's such a great gift. And I hope some of our listeners take advantage of it. I've done breath work and I know how important it really is. So thank you, everybody. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you for listening. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I did. So if you'd like to learn more about me, Manya Chilinsky, I work with organizations to help understand how to create environments where people can thrive after difficult life experiences. And I do this through talks and consulting. I'm a survivor of mass violence, and I use my experience to help leaders learn about resiliency, compassion, and trauma-sensitive leadership, to build strategies to enable teams to thrive and be engaged amidst difficulty and turmoil. If this is something you want to learn more about, visit my website, www.manyachilinsky.com, or email me at Manya@ManyaChilinsky, or stop by my social media on LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks so much.